Welcome, everybody, to our daily sacred self here on Skype. My name is Jona Bryndis, and I'm going to guide you through the meditation, which is titled Karma. And because it's a special day for all of us who study spiritual sciences. But before we go into the energetic secrets of Pentecost, I want to say a big welcome to all of you who are with me here live right now. We have a little bit of time to talk about karma. So let's hear from you what you feel about karma. How do you feel about karma? How do you know, or what do you understand as karma, and how does it play out in your life? Who wants to share? Who dares? It's a big topic, obviously, and nowadays we use the word quite frequently. What does karmic mean to you? And with it also here, like the question that I received, a contemplation about whether karma is good or bad, or if we have to work to release it, how we can release it, if that is something desirable, etc. Who wants to give their take on karma? We all use the word all the time. It's a very frequently used word in spiritual circles, and here in the Sacred Self-Healing community, we use this word as well. So that's why I dedicated a whole entire step to it, to understand what we're talking about when we're talking about karma. Do we see karma as something from the outside, or is it something internal, perhaps?
It's more of an understanding of why something happened.
Okay.
But I don't, if that makes sense, it's not about what happened. Because things could be linked, and the linkage between whatever and however and things is complicated. But I do see, that's why I say, for me, things where I thought they were really bad have turned out to be really good. But in the moment of feeling bad, you can only see the bad. But I've also got to that point, I've had too much bad that I just know that it'll pass. So that's why it's used and bandied around in the good karma and bad karma. But I think I've had good experiences of karma and bad experiences of karma. It's not a state.
Right.
If that resonates.
What I hear you say is that karma is something that you use more as like information. You said earlier, it's not about what happens. Yeah. It's the context maybe, or, well, we talk a lot about karmic patterns. Yeah. Yeah. So what
it's seeing the pattern.
Seeing the pattern. Karma can inform us. Yeah. Kind of like, like you said, sometimes you can't see it, especially when things don't go that well, and we tend to externalize those times when things don't go that well. And we have no problems with taking credits for when things are going really well, right? So karma typically comes up for people when things aren't going that well, which is, as you correctly pointed out, judgmental. It shouldn't be just the good or the bad karma that we're pointing out. That's what I understand what you're saying.
Correct.
So there's something there. I love the way you describe this. Yeah, this complex linkage between things, and it's often just a feeling or something that we realize within ourselves. It's something internal.
Yeah. it's a pattern for me, especially my own. Only that you see it, but you see it from, if I can describe it, you may have a similar experience, but you'll go 360 degrees around it, because every time it comes back, you change something.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's more like, sometimes honestly, when I have a realization of where I was with a perception and now a new perception, and then I get excited, well, where can I go to a perception of a karmic experience? Because you know what I mean? A lot of my karmic stuff is that old stuff that's just triggers. And I mean, and when you step back from it, you go, I see the trigger.
So it's a really cool way of gaining more information about how things are maybe linked in our life, if we can step away from the judgment. Yeah, if we can, I like how you said that, if we can do a 360 around what is happening, yeah, really using different perspectives and contemplate about perhaps the meaning of something. Yeah, it is in our ego's nature that, with this externalization of our power, we don't really think about questioning it, right? If we win in the lottery, right, we're not going to question that, right? But if we lost our house and our job and our partner on the same day, we all tend to call it bad karma. Okay.
100%. It's mainly used in that negative.
Yeah.
That for me is why
I agree.
I was aware of it.
So I like your take on it. Obviously, it's not up to me to judge it, but that's the way it appears to me as well. Yeah. So it's a limitation to look at karma in a good or bad way. Yeah, in the way some schools regard sin or something like that. So I don't think that this is the same thing. Karma is something that can have a lesson for us, and you've pinpointed that. It can show us something if we are willing to look. Yeah, so it's almost like a subtle hint. Yeah. As an energy healer, yeah, somebody who reads people's energies and, codes it. Yeah. So I'm not just reading it, I'm also weaving it. Okay. For me, karma is very, very visible. Yeah. It's a code that is woven into a person's journey, into a person's energy field. And it can come into expression in many different ways. Yeah, through relationships, through our interactions with, like, say, the material world, through money, through children, through family patterns, etc. But I think the most important part about this topic, karma, is that we recognize that there seems to be something like a purpose there. Yeah. So we can't just assume that our karma has a purpose, but it does appear that way. Yeah. So if we can make out patterns, which is obviously a higher function of our mind, yeah, pattern recognition, and we see that somehow, yeah, like, say, the same kind of negative experiences, that's where we usually detect them first, seem to repeat, say, maybe in form of attracting the same kind of people in our life, yeah, or into our lives, or the same types of partners, or the same types of business experiences. Yeah, then that can inform us that there is perhaps maybe like a bigger purpose of, like you said, Matthew, of this repeat. Yeah, maybe there's something there that we're not seeing. And maybe we can even go as far as that there's something we're supposed to see, we're meant to see. And maybe that is something that I can confirm to all of you as an energy reader. That has been programmed into us from the beginning. That's already there when we are born. We can argue about reincarnation. We can argue about whether or not our soul selves pick their own karma and pick the family, the karmic family that they were born into, and the country, and the gender, and all these things. Yeah, whether our soul self picks that consciously in order to experience something, in order to perhaps redeem something. Yeah, so perhaps there is, if you believe in incarnation, or if you believe that we are a spirit being in a physical experience, then you can assume, at least to a certain degree, maybe not in the same way that Eastern traditions talk about a reincarnation, but you can infer that if you have the ability as a spirit being to incarnate, into a physical experience, that there might actually be something like a conscious willing of a certain life's experience, of a certain experience for this lifetime, whether that's based on reincarnation or not. Yeah, I cannot necessarily say that everybody reincarnates. And yes, a lot of people have access to information that resembles past lives, which is not always necessarily their personal soul self experience, because we also have group karma and group souls, and there is information in that that makes us experience something, like, say, um, on an archetypal level. Yeah, but regardless of that, there is a lot of reason for us to believe that there is a higher power, if you will, and even if we ourselves, our higher selves, are that higher power, in the spirit world, that kind of guides us a little bit in life. So I think if we come up with a definition for karma that goes along those lines, as you suggested, Matthew, I think we're on the safe side. Yeah, if we first and foremost see it in a non-judgmental way, and second, look at it as a guide, as something like a little bit of directions for our journey. That, well, we can't prove that, but yeah, something, somebody, maybe our higher self, that's the information that I get from my higher self. Yeah, I picked this. Okay, yeah, I'm willing to take on my karma as something that I needed, that I was meant to see, to experience, and that's the third part, overcome. Overcome. All right, so let's talk about that. Can we all agree on this rather generic definition of karma without going too spiritual or into any particular spiritual direction? Okay, so let's go into this question that came in here in the beginning that I'm very grateful for. Namely, if we are releasing karma is basically, it's similar to overcoming. If we're releasing karma through suffering, if this is like a price we have to pay, or if it is something like an old debt, that we carry around, that's fundamentally the Eastern spirituality that brings this kind of attitude into understanding of karma, which is pretty prevalent. A lot of people regard karma, not in a non-judgmental way. They regard it as punitive to a degree, or as even if it's for the sake of settling a balance, something that was maybe carried over from a previous life or previous existence, or as the consequence of our actions. And in the original Sanskrit, karma just means action. Okay, it just means action. It's a very non-judgmental word. The way most of us experience karma is in a way that it wants us to balance something. Yeah. So the settling the debt or balancing the bad with the good. And that's something we all kind of intuitively feel, isn't it? There's something about that in us that rings true. Yeah, that there's something that needs to be released, something that needs to be let go of or overcome. And the Eastern spiritual traditions back in the days, thousands of years ago, when those traditions and those teachings came to us humans as sort of a way to contextualize the world and life, it was very much geared to the physical suffering. Yeah, so the Eastern spirituality or Eastern teachings see karma as suffering. And that, it's all about suffering through, a certain, like, say, amount of debt that you have been building up and you got to pay for it. Yeah. I'm obviously, not going into the details here, but I'm trying to show you different ways of looking at it. In the Christian traditions, which are more like Middle East, if you will, Christian Judean traditions, karma would probably be more seen as something that you need to balance back out, something that has to do with redemption, that has to do with finding the middle ground, finding the balance between the two, something that was also brought to us through the Egyptians, with this scale of justice, this idea that things need to be balanced out and that they can be balanced out within a lifetime. Western traditions, which are more according to modern spirituality, regard karma yet in another way, namely, not only that it is something that has built up from the past, that we may or may not even be aware of. Yes, something that needs to be released, that needs to be worked through. Yeah. Something that we need to redeem ourselves for, yes, but through our full presence in the now. So I personally like to see this from a Western spiritual perspective because it grants me more power to have influence over, sort of where this is going to go. Yeah, it is a less externalized version of this spiritual journey in that it gives me the power to decide through my continual action, through my conscious choices in the now, to work on this in a non-judgmental way. It doesn't even have to be through suffering. It's more really about letting go from all the things that make us unfree. So if you think of your karma as something that is pre-programmed into you, as sort of the minimum level of what you should get out of this life. then yes, I mean, this is a good guidance for us, at least if you look at it from a spiritual perspective, because it makes us strive for constant improvement, for constant balancing, and that's a good thing. But there's another component to that, and that is, well, what if all your debt is settled? What if everything is balanced? Now what? And here is where the attitude problem with karma comes into or is illuminated. For a lot of people, life appears as suffering. Life is almost like something punitive, that has to be suffered through. A lot of people see life as struggle, as sort of karmic punishment, okay, for something from a previous life or a different existence. And it doesn't actually go anywhere beyond that. So what if you have settled all your debt? What are your guys' thoughts on this? If life's purpose is all about settling the debt, the karmic debt, and sort of paying the price for things that for the sins of our previous lives, or the sins of our early life, the sins of our fathers, perhaps. What happens if you settle all the debt?
Hello, Jona. Hello, everybody. Sebastian. For me, it feels like the moment when we step into our true power. That it feels to me like like that progressive embodiment of true self. And in that place, when I feel into that place of having that moment of balance with karma, it's like the moment when I have that full ability to fully express in purpose of my life, in terms of bringing it to this world, but yeah, pretty much like that. We're going on a deeper.
Without restriction, right? What I would say was like total freedom.
Yeah.
Total freedom to self-express and self-actualize, and perhaps even, I like that about what you just said. Growing beyond,
Yes. Yes.
yourself. So it's an opportunity. So you see, a settled karma as an opportunity, as something positive, as something to work to because it allows you to step out of restrictions. Question only is, how do we know that our karma is settled? Anybody, any thoughts on that?
It's I love the way how you presented that, because it kind of brings me to Hawkins' story when he's answering the question about how do you know that you are enlightened, and that smile and laughing at his nose, that I feel that that moment when we are stepping into our full power is the moment when we let go of that question, like that we don't question anymore the choice. It kind of comes from within us, and that empowerment that we reach in that moment kind of states the choice, kind of allows us to see that with that grounded and centered from that grounded and certain centered place, without questioning that anymore. It's like having that feeling of seeing doubt almost like away from yourself. I don't know how to better describe it visually, but I guess you know what I mean. It's that feeling of to me, I had those few of those moments. It's like that very overwhelming feeling of just following from your heart without any question. It's just there, and you just know that that's where you want to put your foot on. That's where you want to go. That's how you want to
That's your own
express.
navigator then, right? You
Yeah.
it's like you become your own navigator. You don't need something like karma to be your navigator anymore, because
Yes.
you've stepped into this power, yeah, where you feel the freedom that you can freely choose, yeah, where to go, and where you have the tools such as discerning truth, yeah, that inform you about, let's say, what is most conducive or what is most, like beneficial for you, yeah, in conjunction with your purpose and the promise that you made to your inner soul self. So you're free of restrictions. You feel sort of, you have no attachments anymore. There is nothing you need to finish. There's nothing you need to have. Yeah. So something that the Eastern traditions would call detachment. Yeah. The state of detachment. When you no longer feel like you need, all the getting, owning, having, even ascending. Yeah. And I like your analogy here with the when do you know that you're illuminated? Yeah, when you don't care anymore because you're already there. But it's obviously not that simple, but it's, it's the letting go of attachments. So let me summarize all this, because you guys are a really cool audience here. We've literally worked through thousands of years of literature here right now, spiritual, metaphysical literature. Karma is something that basically takes over guidance in case we don't develop enough consciousness to do it ourselves. So karma could be seen as an attachment or as a restriction, yeah, because it is, until we are actually able to see it, until we're able to recognize it in our lives. How do we recognize karma, guys? Anybody discovered karmic patterns or karmic ties to people, places, family? How do you recognize karma?
It's definitely a pattern, and I've been just recently talking about that. It's like that repetition that you find yourself in a place where where you can say to yourself, "Damn it, I've been in this place before," but in a way that at the beginning it's like damn it, but then it's like, oh, it's something interesting here to explore, and then it just grows on you in some way that you're just becoming more and more curious rather than the punitive, as you said. And
it's a certain familiarity, right?
yeah, and like you said, it kind of goes through different parts of life. Because once you are willing to see the context, it really shows up quite clearly that it shows in every single part of your life.
And it often weaves through all parts of our lives. A lot of times, this is something that I can confirm to you guys. It's only one or two karmic aspects in people's lives, yeah, that just find different expressions in different ways. Yeah, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, or energetically, in form of karmic families, karmic relationships, karmic accidents. you know? So it really is almost like sort of a fail-safe, if you will, that ensures a certain level of growth on this journey, which can then also help us to understand our journey a little better. Because if it's all about harmonizing and balancing something that is not in balance, maybe in a grander scale or in a different dimension, but about us, right? That then means that by going through this pre-programmed learning experience, we are able to arrive at, say, higher levels of consciousness, yeah, all the way to illumination. Yeah, so higher levels of consciousness equals lower levels of attachment. It's just one aspect of higher levels of consciousness, which means that we have consciously recognized and consciously worked with these karmic aspects in our lives. Yeah. And we can recognize them by their familiarity, often just by the sheer number of repetitions in life. Yeah, that's a really, really good sign that you're experiencing a karmic aspect in your life. If it keeps repeating over and over with just different people or different countries or whatever you try to change in your life, and it keeps coming back to you. Yeah, so we recognize karma through often repetition, but sometimes it can also be just a really subtle familiarity because you didn't actually experience it in this lifetime. Yeah, and you feel these resonances, you feel these attractions. And when it comes to like whether our actions, yeah, that add to karma or take away from karma, that's then when it gets really interesting. Seba just called this empowering. So in that moment that we recognize, yeah, the minimum sort of grade level that we are supposed to recognize, yeah, that we are supposed to develop here through our learning experiences, is when we begin to see something else, and that is the higher potential. So everyone who is able to recognize and work with their karma, yeah, consciously working with their karma, begins to get a really good taste of what freedom and the ability to discern truth and a true love for truth, yeah, the higher potential in themselves. Yeah, this is the good news. So let's come back to the original question then. Is karma just something that we have to work off like a credit card debt and then everything ends? I've personally heard more people than I want to say, all I want to do is get done with my karma so I don't have to come back. Anybody heard this before? That's still from, it's unreflected, obviously, but it's coming from Eastern traditions, yeah, where the mere fact that we have incarnated implies, yeah, that we have a karmic debt, that we have some kind of thing to pay off. All right. Now, the way we just worked this out sounded a little differently and much more hopeful and positive to me, because it implies that there is actually a higher evolutionary path in me, perhaps also pre-programmed. Yeah. But I need to overcome the original sort of lesson first. Yeah. I need to recognize what in me is imprisoned, not entirely free yet. Yeah, take ownership of it. accept it as, something that I need to work through. Yeah, and then go into, and all this obviously in a conscious manner, consciously balancing this out. And here in step 16, as many of you know, it's the link to the 12-step program. It's linked to step 6. It says, no, step 8, sorry, not thinking right when I'm live. Yeah, it reminds us of, well, the debt that we have built up with people in our life. And it's about making amends. It's about actually doing it. It's about stepping into action, like the Sanskrit word for karma. You're claiming the power that you talked about, Siva, to make good, to redeem ourselves, to release karma. So obviously this is not just meant in this practical way, although it's a very good discipline to do this in life. I recommend everybody to do active reconciliation with people in your lives that you have hurt or that you have caused whatever to. And there's a higher version of that, even the ones that hurt you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, to go into this reconciliation. And I suggest, and this is also something that I practice here and that people can book with me, etheric reconciliation that can be done with individuals, but also with places or entire nations or entire soul groups, if you want to, etherically, yeah, through an energy session. Most of my karmic sessions, such as karmic family clearing, karmic relationship clearing, karmic collective clearing, have this process in general in there. And we all have to recognize that this power is in us already. We just have to choose it. We just have to be willing to see that it is needed to balance something out. And if we, and this is the good news, guys, if we step into it consciously and proactively, then we do not have to experience life as suffrage. We do not have to suffer anything on a physical level because it's no longer needed for us to get the lesson. Does this make sense? Yes, so I always talk about the short way and the long way, okay? The long way is repetition, repetition, repetition until you get it. And the more often something like pain or suffering repeats, the heavier, the denser it's going to become on your physical. Right? Now, the short way is to actively work with this, is to consciously choose, yeah, based on your inner discernment of truth. Yeah, this one, I didn't really live up to my highest potential. I didn't really do a good job here. I still have some unfinished business here. I need to reconcile something and to actively do this and to make this a way of living, not because you were afraid of some kind of punishment for your sins, but because you understand karma, because you understand your journey as the journey of overcoming all these restrictions. And that is the energetic secret of Pentecost. That is what happened after the 50th, or on the 50th day after Easter, when Jesus resurrected and then ascended. And 10 days later, so there was a 10-day gap between ascension and Pentecost. The Holy Spirit, that's, Christian terminology for a really, really deep, energetic and metaphysical principle. The Holy Spirit descended into each and every one of us. The way it's written in the Bible is that Jesus poured out the Holy Spirit to the apostles and all mankind. Now, so Christianity is worth looking at if you want to really get some deeper metaphysical insights, because it's the only religion that is not created for only a certain type of person or certain beliefs. That's the only religion that is actually obtainable and there for everyone. And therefore worthwhile reading, because just like some of the other classics in our human history, carries quite a bit of wisdom. So Pentecost is the outpouring of this ability to spiritually see for yourself, to recognize your own karma, to recognize your own inner unfreedom, and to consciously step into it as a part of the greater hero's journey. Namely, that we all carry this higher consciousness, this divine consciousness in us already. Up until then, it was the Father, the God, that sort of poured the visions into people, and they had unconscious visioning. This is the same, and also my criticism with all the channeling, people that are channeling stuff they don't even know what they're channeling, and it doesn't even matter if it's true or not. It's unconscious. It's not executing the higher consciousness within themselves. But up until then, spiritual visioning was only possible through, I don't know, the burning bush and the prophets and the angels and, those kind of experiences. And in that moment, which is basically the New Testament, the new principle, the new paradigm, Jesus handed this over, poured this out onto all humanity. This is a phenomenal message, a phenomenal metaphysical principle that every one of us who believes in higher consciousness, or divine consciousness in you, needs to brush up on, because it is in you. And that's the connection with karma. For as long as you see karma as something external, like a punishment from God or, whatever, the universe, okay, you're still missing the bigger journey, the one that shows you your true power, your ability to co-create out of the love for truth, out of the love for freedom, which you can feel in your heart, but you have to train your mind to be able to fully understand that. Your higher mind is the one that you're trying to obtain through your lifetime. So there's no judgment in when I say that, for as long as you understand karma as something external. I'm trying to tell you that there is so much more about this, and that you don't have to regard this as carved in stone and suffrage and all that. That there is so much more that comes with that. I am honored to be a guide for some of you here on this hero's journey, to uncovering this true power in you. So karma can be balanced, karma can be healed, and that is on all these different levels of being and self-awareness, something that we all feel in a way. on whichever consciousness level we are. But it is the attitude about it that determines which way this goes. So if you're asking me, please don't wish for not having come to come back into this lifetime, because it's a very life-degrading attitude to do with life. Life is an offering, guys. It's an opportunity. And if you're suffering from the idea that, oh yeah, one day I'm going to have to die, and one day I'm going to have to let go of everything, and one day I'm going to get old, all right, then that means that you are caught in your ego's fear. Fear is one of the big darknesses in us. And that's often the one that we need to overcome when we do active karma work. And that's the big restriction. And if there are people on the outside, or institutions or authorities or whatever, whoever, priests or whatever, tell us, that we're in for a heavy punishment, well, unfortunately, they're sending us to the wrong exit. I personally like the message of Pentecost better. The descent of the Holy Spirit into each and every one of our consciousness as an option, as an offering. And once you feel that, once you feel this power of free will, you no longer need to be afraid of karma, guys. You take it as your guide, and say, wow, thank God for my karma. Without it, I wouldn't have gotten this so early in my life, because most people recognize what their karma is on their deathbed. And I'm happy that I was able to recognize my karmic lessons through all the suffering on all these different levels so quickly. So I'm sending thanks to my higher self every day for giving me this big karmic debt, because it forced me to go through it quickly. It was easy for me to recognize the patterns. Because I had already done so many repetitions. By the time I was 30, it was clear to me. Right, so this is a new perspective, perhaps, on karma, you guys, that I hope is empowering for you. We were going to meditate together, which I no longer have the time for. So I apologize for this, but I can leave the meditation here for you. That you can now, after you've digested these words, or that you've let those words in, and perhaps hopefully also digested them a little bit, to work through you on a more subconscious level with this step 16 sacred self-healing meditation spoken by Jeff. All right, before I let you go, questions. Yes, you forgot about that. You forgot about Pentecost. Cool that this is resonating with you. Yes, Pentecost is the celebration of the freedom of the spirit of freedom, the freedom for us to choose and co-create our karma. Wonderful. This will be a video on YouTube, so if you have questions or comments, please leave comments there so more people can see, can watch these videos. You can obviously also comment here in the Daily Sacred Self chat. Thank you so much, guys, for coming. It's more energy talk today. Then thank you.